Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea. What a couple days to spend. We go into CPI tomorrow and the retail sales combo at 8:30. We'll have all our coverage there. Michael McKee leading our coverage for all of Bloomberg media. But just already an eventful week. I mean, a market that's not doing anything. You look at the screen and the VIX is like 13 whatever. And you can first glance at the Bloomberg Launch Pad and you're like, I can take off the month. And then you look at some of the nuances out there. I'll give you two nuances right now. One is this dash to utilities because AI is going to need all sorts of new electricity. And the fact is utilities have done a moonshot. We'll get to copper in a moment. And the other is what's going on in the Pacific Rim. And just quietly early this morning, Euro-Yen showed weak yen, strong euro. And I'm sorry, they got to go into the Japanese evening and discuss this. We'll have all of that across our Asia coverage. Yvonne Mann leading so much of that effort. And Steve Engel with his great reporting. But look for that based out of Hong Kong, but also out of Japan as well. I'm really watching Euro-Yen for a third Japanese intervention. There's always a good intervention when Jeff Currie shows up. He taught for years at his University of Chicago. The great segment here for the longer podcast of the microeconomics of oil, the shift that we're seeing in copper. But here is Jeff Currie on copper in the new sustained rally, the higher price of copper.
AIs, chips and copper. You need the chips, but then you need the electrical wiring to be able to power those chips. And one of those chips, the NVIDIA chips, the GPUs, consume as much power as the average American household. So you're going to need a lot of grid connection to be able to accommodate that type of growth. And, what is the bottleneck for that? It's copper. So all roads lead to copper, whether if it's military spend, AI data centers, green CapEx, they all point to copper.
Jeff Currie, of course, iconic at Goldman Sachs, now holding court at Carlyle Group as well. On the equity market, some spirited discussion today. Just no other way to put it. A real debate about valuation, about the wall of money that's out there, comfortable with 5% money market funds. Somebody on the live chat on YouTube said, hey, I got a 6-month CD, 5.35%. That gets your attention. But you look back at the challenges the market's had, and Julian Emanuel, working at Evercore ISI, would make clear these are valuation dynamics, a simplistic route. The one I do not recommend is to look at price as compared to earnings, and you get some form of valuation when you look at price as compared to earnings. I would look much more, at least drag cash flow into it, that cash after CapEx. And, of course, with the fancy stocks, the Magnificent Seven, there's some real CapEx dynamics right now. Or I'd really look at return on invested capital. But anyways, the valuation phrase always within the media comes back to PE. Julian Emanuel of Evercore ISI.
The entire downdraft in 2022 and really the other side in 2023, it was very valuation driven. Okay, we understand that the earnings have migrated towards, for the most part, that select 7. But at the index level, the earnings have stayed roughly the same. The thing about 2024, which convinces us that even though we think you have a correction in front of you, is that the bull market has further legs, is you're actually going to see earnings growth for the first time in 2 years. The surprises were much larger than expected, because revisions went down prior to the start of the quarter. There isn't really an explanation other than perhaps the message of what was a subpar GDP first quarter. But you're basically on track, 5.5%, maybe 6% earnings growth. And from our view, that's good. We expect roughly that rate of growth throughout the year. But the problem for the markets is the market expects that number to be upwards of 10%.
Julian Emanuel, Evercore ISI, and I do want to make note, Gina Martin-Adams of Bloomberg Intelligence has been way out front with the earnings and revenue surprises that we've seen. I should point out Home Depot showing up today with a pretty tepid, 7.4% mortgage influenced earnings report. We'll get much more on that in the coming days, I'm sure, from our guests and from Bloomberg Intelligence as well. We're out on Apple CarPlay and Android Play. This is growing out. The statistics are unreal on this revolution of putting fancy communications into cars. Now, obviously, they're going into new cars. And we look at Apple CarPlay as a 3-year project, 5-year project, as we see a rollover, a changing within the automobile business towards these sophisticated dashboards where you can find all of what we do at Bloomberg Podcasts, all the radio interviews, even Carol Masser. It's just amazing. Carol Masser's on Apple CarPlay as well. Out at YouTube, subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts. A lot of people have said, what's the easiest way to do this? Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts, search for Bloomberg Podcasts, and you'll get to our 3-hour show. Also the replay, and of course all the other products that we have on Bloomberg Podcasts. Should mention Matt Miller's Hot Pursuits, something to watch for, and David Gurrow lighting up Big Take as well. From New York City, inflation tomorrow. This is single best idea.